Till we left off on the bottom of page 204.
That's what I thought too. Okay, so here we go. Everybody here, just welcome everyone. Let's bow in. And welcome to the Buddhist Path of Awakening, our Tuesday course, as we work our way through Francesca Fremantle's book, Luminous, Emptiness. This book divides itself into two parts. The first part is sort of a general introduction to those elements of Buddhism that prepare us to study what is incorrectly titled the Tibetan Book of the Dead. It's actually the Tibetan Book of Hearing in the Bardo, the space between. But it's been called the Tibetan Book of the Dead for, I think, 130 years. And are we letting Tara in? Does anybody know Tara? I don't think so. Okay, and we are on the last chapter of this first half of the book, the preparation. And then we're going to start entering into the teachings on death. The Bardo teachings, they're often called, although Bardo simply means interval. And there are other Bardos besides the death Bardos, but the death Bardos are the ones that are most famous, and those are the ones we're going to be studying beginning next week. Tonight, we're studying the last half of the last chapter in the first half of the book. And this chapter is basically on the most advanced section of the Buddhist teachings. These are called the Great Perfection teachings in English, Dzogchen in Tibetan, Ati, Trungpa Rinpoche often call them Ati in Sanskrit. And I'm going to let Miriam in. Michael, I'm going to let you deal with Tara to whatever extent you wish. And here we go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Looks like we've got quite a few people. So these are the Dzogchen teachings, the Great Perfection teachings, the last stage of the path. And often the proponents of these particular teachings describe them as being the absolute description of the real. That what precedes them in Tantra, which is often called the creation and completion practices, are preliminary, leading up to this. Why are they preliminary? It's because of the central dynamic that confused people bring to the path. I think I'm going to ask people to stop eating, and either that or turn off their video. Okay, because we're giving teachings now. So the earlier teachings in Tantra, called creation and completion, have to do with feeling that you're not there yet, and you create a situation in your mind, a mental creation, that is going to get you closer, and as it dissolves, you enter the completion stage, which is the stage of achieving enlightenment. Dzogchen is pure completion stage. It has no creation stage. It has no compromise. And we're going to start, I think we're on page 204, with this idea. Talks about the relaxation into reality. Reality being just this. In fact, let's all take a good posture for a minute, just for the heck of it. I'm going to let someone else deal with the people in the waiting room, including Tara. And with your eyes open and your gaze natural and your awareness right here wherever here happens to be. This is the very natural state of awareness. When you comment on it and you say, oh, is this it? Or is this not good enough? Or is this better? Am I actually doing it? All of that is a waste. Beside the point. Because what you're doing right now, this open, clear awareness of the screen in front of you, of my voice, of whatever is passing through your experience, that simple, effortless awareness is it. This is the awareness of Dzogchen. This is the awareness of the awakened state of mind. And when we try to evaluate it and we say, oh, is this good? Is this bad? Is this really it? Am I doing it? Then it gets messed up. It's just this simple, clear awareness. This is the very essence of Dzogchen. The non-essence of Dzogchen is to make a distinction between yourself and what you're aware of. And then you say, am I really aware? Am I really aware? Let that go. Without any effort, without any comment, you are right here, listening to this voice, seeing the screen in front of you. Now that I mention it, feeling your bottom on whatever you're sitting. All of these things are just happening. This is the fundamental core awareness that Dzogchen is dealing with. Comments about it, like, oh, this is Dzogchen, or, oh, I'm doing it, oh, I'm not, I don't understand this. All those are superfluous. Let them go. In Dzogchen meditation, there is no distinction between the knower and the known. It's all just happening. Right here. The screen, the images in front of you, the sound of this voice, everything. The smell of dinner cooking, whatever it might be. The thoughts going through your head, doesn't matter. It's all clear, simple awareness of the present moment. You don't have to do anything to it. You don't have to improve it. You don't have to cull it out. You don't have to get rid of the bad stuff. You don't have to do anything. That split between knower and known is what is evaporated, dissolved. Not here anymore. It doesn't matter. Whatever you're aware of, this is it. This is Dzogchen. This is the final awareness. And the more we begin to acknowledge that, accept it, value it, the more our orientation changes from trying to improve ourselves. No, that's a no-no. Trying to improve yourself, even to stop trying to improve yourself, is another form of improving yourself. No, it's all this. Whatever is happening now. This is Dzogchen, and this is what Francesca is talking about in this chapter. She says this relaxation is not a state of passivity and inaction, but of clear, precise awareness, effortless awareness, free from the interference of the confused mind. Energy arising from that spaciousness is unobstructed, without the preconceptions and limitations that the mind imposes. Action becomes spontaneous, free from hesitation and doubt. Trungpa Rinpoche used to say to us, just do it. He used to shout that at us. This attitude of simply relaxing and resting in the space of one's basic nature is particularly strong in Dzogchen. Trungpa Rinpoche's whole approach to Dharma was based on it, whatever kind of practice he was teaching. It was always pervaded by the flavor of Dzogchen, or Ati, the Sanskrit, as he usually called it. He preferred the word Ati. The final teachings of Dzogchen are found in the instructions section of Ati Yoga. And they consist of two stages, which I'm going to mention, but we're not going to go into this here. But you should know that they exist. These two practices in the last stages of Dzogchen. Excuse me. One is called Trekchot, spelled Trekchod usually, although there are variations on that. Sometimes it's Trekcho with an umlaut over the O, two dots, which means cutting through. And the other practice is called Tugal, spelled Tho with the two dots, umlaut, Gal, which is difficult to translate, but it's often translated as something like surpassing or passing over. Cutting through means cutting through any I or other thought, any hesitation, any feeling that you need to improve, any feeling that something needs to improve. Cutting through all of that. To what? To this. Right here. What's always here. You don't have to go looking for what you're cutting through to. It's here. You're just cutting through the confusion. Tugal is in a different order of things. Once one begins to develop cutting through and resting in this natural state, then the world begins to appear a bit differently, as energies, as enormous displays of energy. And this is what Tugal is all about. And it's in a different league. But they both transcend the stages of the last clinging to self or conceptual thought. Even the concept of enlightenment goes out the window. It's not useful. What's useful is the practice of cutting through and the practice of true seeing the world as it truly is, which is absolutely beautiful, stunning, which is Tugal. So this is no longer a path of transformation, of transforming yourself, but it's a path of self-liberation, resulting from direct recognition of reality, cutting through any kind of hesitation, any kind of self-doubt. The feeling, oh, I need to do something better. That's just clouds. Clouds your vision. You let it go. So in the first stage, cutting through, the meditator is taught to identify naked awareness. Here it is, it's naked, it's here all the time. You can't shut it off. The very basis of mind is distinct from operations of mind or consciousness, so you're not thinking. It's always here, this basic, fundamental, clear awareness. Thoughts are self-liberated at the moment of their arising. When you're resting in this clear awareness, a thought might arise and then it's gone. It has no function. And one remains continuously in the presence of awareness. So in this state, one recognizes complete certainty. Certainty in what? Certainty that you're knowing this. You know this. You know this eccentric individual talking to you. You know the screen that all of this is appearing on. You know the sound in your ears, all of it. This state, this empty nature of all phenomena, empty because it doesn't need any comment, beyond both samsara and nirvana, has nothing to do with confusion or enlightenment. It's just simple awareness, is known as primordial purity. That's the English translation for the Tibetan. The Tibetan is kadak, one of the key terms in Dzogchen. Kadak. Kadak means primordial purity. All of this that we are inhabiting right now is primordially pure from the very beginning, never tainted. It's not a question of the skandhas and the elements of confusion being purified. but of recognizing them as they really are, seeing these actions of mind as they really are, and then they go. They just disappear, just like these words. Nothing lasts, including these words. The practitioner who has accomplished this practice of cutting through can attain the rainbow body, it's called, at death. His or her mind merges with the Dharmakaya, while the body simply dissolves away into the 5 colored lights of the subtle elements. This is what happened to Padmasambhava and to a number of other very highly realized teachers who mastered Tugel, surpassing. And at death, they simply turned into the rainbow body and never die. You don't die in the rainbow body, but then you're not really a human being in the ordinary sense anymore either, I don't think. Padmasambhava lives on to this very day on an island off the coast of Jambudvipa. Jambudvipa is where we as human beings live, mythically. And he lives on an island off the coast of Jambudvipa, out in the ocean. This island is called Chamaran. And on it there's a huge mountain that goes all the way up to the sky, and he lives on the top of that. And he comes back to Jambudvipa, where we live, to help us out from time to time. We don't recognize him, but he does. Vimalamitra, another great teacher who attained the rainbow body, lives on today on a mountain in China. You can actually go there. You could go and search for Vimalamitra. He's living on that mountain. It's called Wutaishan, which means 5-peaked mountain, and it's there. And there are a number of other great teachers, Jnana Sutra and others, who achieved the rainbow body and live on. How they live on, that's not for me to say. I don't know. They don't live on in an ordinary sense the way we do. But they do live on and come back. Vimalamitra comes back every 100 years, it's said, in order to make sure that these teachings haven't fallen into disuse, haven't fallen into, what's the word I want? People forgetting them. He wants to make sure they're still alive and practiced, these Dzogchen teachings, including the teachings of Tugel, these magical teachings, which allow you to see the world magically. We're going to get to this actually more. One of the bardos, after you die, that most people don't see because they haven't meditated enough, they haven't trained enough, is called the bardo of reality. It's the interval. The first bardo of death is the bardo of the falling away of your body and your ordinary mind. When that happens, there's a moment when you can achieve complete enlightenment. Unless you've trained a lot, practiced a lot, you won't even notice that moment. You just snap through it like a finger snap. And if you have trained enough, then you will see the bardo of reality, it's called, the bardo of dharmata, the chini bardo. All of them mean the same thing, the interval of reality. Most people don't see that either because they haven't trained enough. They just snap right through it. It flickers through and they don't even notice it. And they pass on into the third of the death bardos, which is the bardo of becoming. And in that bardo, you appear, you have the body of a 7-year-old or a 6-year-old child. In the first half of this is the 49 days between death and rebirth. And in the first half of this, you have the body of the child you were in your previous life, and in the last half, the body of the child you will become. And this bardo ends when you see your future parents copulating, and you enter the woman's womb and become a baby. So these are the 3 death bardos. We're going to be going through them starting next week. But right now, we're talking about the bardo of reality, which is actually the experience of Tugel crossing over, is the experience of the bardo of reality. It's seeing what are called the 100 peaceful and wrathful deities. It's seeing this world as it truly is, as a constant wake-up, a constant message for us to wake up that we ignore when we're confused. The final stage, I'm just reading from my notes, surpassing. That's Tugel. Means crossing over the top or passing above. It could be thought of as reaching the highest point or even passing beyond the summit of realization. Visionary experiences of light spontaneously manifest from the expanse of primordial purity. This is that stage of Tugel, of seeing of reality. Rainbows and rays of light, dancing chains of light, circles of the 5 colors, the spheres of light in which all the peaceful and wrathful deities appear. This is called spontaneous presence or spontaneous accomplishment. There is no longer any need to meditate. Meditation is out the window. It isn't Tugel altogether. Dzogchen altogether. These visions are not objects of meditation, but the natural appearances of reality itself, our own nature, emerging from within and becoming visible to the eye. By the way, Francesca has her limitations. She does a beautiful job with Ati Yoga, with Dzogchen. She doesn't really understand Tugel. You have to bear that in mind as she talks about it. Tugel is a very difficult and esoteric practice. You have to apply yourself quite vigorously to accomplish Tugel. Surpassing. So he says, while cutting through is a path of wisdom and emptiness, Trekchit, cutting through. Surpassing is a path of skillful means and compassion. The yoga or yogini who accomplishes Tugel, surpassing, attains complete realization of all 3 kayas, Nirmanakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Dharmakaya, and can manifest in a Sambhogakaya or Nirmanakaya form at will. To manifest in a Sambhogakaya form is to manifest as pure communication of one kind or another. And there are 6 basic modes of communication: eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, and thought. His or her body, the yogin or the yogini, becomes a body of light. You can hear this is really magical, appearing simply for the sake of others. He or she remains in an awakened state and does not go through birth and death. In other words, does not experience any of the bardos, even though the body may appear to be born and to die like that of an ordinary person. And in my notes, I've got Guru Rinpoche and a few other exceptional people are said to have achieved this. Padmasambhava, Guru Rinpoche. They remain in the world manifesting in many forms, visionary and material, to those who are able to see them. The description of the bardos and the instructions relating to them contained in Liberation Through Hearing are really meant for people who have practiced cutting through. Cutting through. That's the practice. As we sit and meditate, we are preparing ourselves. We are practicing cutting through, however imperfectly, and it will get us there. Just debating where to stop. What do you think, Michael? Should I stop here and turn it over to you, or should I go a little bit further? But this is it. Really, this is at page 206, where he's talking about a companion text to Liberation Through Hearing, discovered by Karma Lingpa in the same termocycle, beautifully presents the Dzogchen view. This text is called Self-Liberation Through Naked Sight, Pointing Out Awareness. It gives instructions on how to recognize and remain in the state of supreme awareness, which it describes in great depth. If a practitioner becomes accustomed to that state, this complete awareness of cutting through during life, then he or she will be able to enter it easily at death. She says, the text begins by stating the fundamental point that confused mind and awakened mind are one and the same in essence, and that all the different paths within Buddhism lead to the same end, the recognition of the true nature of mind. And then there's this quote, wonderful. One mind encompasses the whole of samsara and nirvana. This is it. We're in the middle of it right now, the one mind. It's not that it's one as opposed to many. It's just that it's this. It is one's nature from the very beginning, yet it is not recognized. Its clarity and awareness flow unceasingly, yet it is not met face to face. Dawning without obstruction everywhere. Here it is. It's all around us, in us. Its reality is not grasped. Just so that this itself may recognize itself. All the inconceivable 84,000 doors to Dharma. This is what was taught about the Buddha. He presented innumerable approaches to Dharma. Are taught by the Buddhas of past, present, and future. The Buddhas have taught nothing at all except the realization of this itself, here and now. We're already there. Trungpa Rinpoche was a living demonstration of this. Nowhere to go. It is important to remember that in Buddhism, one mind does not imply any kind of cosmic entity or substance. One mind. It simply refers to the illuminating knowing faculty of mind, which is the same whether it proceeds in accordance with truth or in a distorted fashion, which creates confusion. It's the same thing here. It's this knowingness of mind that we are experiencing at this very moment. This mind contains the whole spectrum of the awakened state, the Trikaya, Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Nirmanakaya. Its essential emptiness, that's the Dharmakaya. Its radiant energy, that's the Sambhogakaya. And its unceasing manifestation, that's the Nirmanakaya. The fact that all of this is empty. Empty of what? Empty of any real existence, Dharmakaya. And yet, because it's empty, it can communicate to us, black, sweet, sour, alive, dead, whatever it communicates. That's Sambhogakaya. And all of this manifests unceasingly. The computer screen, this voice, this person, this sweater, that's Nirmanakaya, the unceasing manifestation. This is the Trikaya, this is the description of reality. This is a quote, since our own mind is inherently Buddha, yes, our own mind, all we really need to do is to recognize and rest in our true nature. From this point of view, the awakened state is our own perfectly ordinary mind, our everyday experience. Yet even after it has been shown to us, we seem unable to retain that realization. We feel like we've got to do something, make it better, make me better, make what I see better. So we start by making efforts to change ourselves, to find something, or to attain some goal. But these very efforts become counterproductive. They obscure reality. In the ultimate sense, there is really nothing to do and nothing to change. Yet we start to have doubts and feel we are unable to achieve anything. We despair at getting nowhere, when really there is nowhere to go. I think I'll stop here, and there's this quote if you want it, Michael, or,
Yeah.
okay, we're on the powerful method of entering and so forth. Okay,
Yeah, actually, I'm going to go back just a little bit to the beginning of this verse, or actually even before talking about the verse. Even the title is interesting in itself. We had an entire chapter earlier in the text about self-liberation. It was like the second or third chapter, self-liberation, uncoiling in space. The more we understand that such a thing is possible, that in fact thoughts self-liberate if we don't interfere, if we don't afford them attention, if we don't try to stop them, that self-liberation is possible is because of this primordial nature of mind that we've been talking about so far. That ultimately the basic nature of mind is never affected in any way by anything that we experience. That we always have the capacity to be open. We always have the capacity to be awake and aware. What does change is our ability to recognize that. And really that's the purpose of what she's talking about here. She says, if we can become accustomed to this state, our basic aware Buddha nature, whatever you want to call it, if a practitioner becomes accustomed to this state during life, then he or she will be able to enter it easily at death. So that's really that's really the significance of these verses that we're talking about now. And as she says, these verses present the Dzogchen view, and they give instruction on how to recognize and remain in the state of supreme awareness. So they're really worth contemplating and seeing what we can come to recognize in terms of our experience. When it begins by saying one mind encompasses the whole of samsara and nirvana, it's saying that this fundamental primordial nature of mind is the origin of everything that we experience. And that when we're able to actually recognize this ground of mind, if we're able to come from that place, then we experience full awakening. But what more often happens is, in fact, we're ignorant of this. And then in the Ati teachings, it says we experience the second level of ignorance, which is rather than seeing that everything we experience is a reflection of mind, that everything we experience is the reflected phenomena of mind, instead, we end up in some kind of dualism. And because of our tendency to things dualistically, in terms of I and other, in terms of internal, external, it's very difficult at times to understand these teachings because we move so far away from our fundamentally non-dual experience of the world. So one mind encompasses the whole of samsara and nirvana. It's one's nature from the very beginning, yet it's not recognized. So that's the fundamental ignorance, is that non-recognition of the fundamental, the primordial ground of mind. And then there's a secondary level where rather than understanding that what we experience is in essence our own mind, but tend to take it as being real and external and separate from us, then there's the second level of ignorance. And that's what, in understanding these teachings, what we're being asked to look at and see to what extent we can recognize and remain in a state where we actually experience non-dual wisdom. So one's mind encompasses the whole of samsara and nirvana. It's one's nature from the beginning. And it's this mind that creates, that is the foundation, that is the reality of our experience, whether we experience nirvana or samsara. And this is no different than what we say in the morning chant, where we talk about the indivisibility of samsara and nirvana. It really comes down to recognizing the basic nature of mind before there's a dualistic split, before there's some kind of fixation on ego and other, self and other. So as John was just saying, our mind is Buddha. This is what's shown to us, yet after being shown to us, this is difficult to retain. Our very attempts to do so get in the way because they miss the point. So every time we think we need to create or experience something different than what we are, rather than just simply being able to be in our experience, we're creating an obstacle to actually experiencing our fundamental awareness, that trying, as she says, trying to change ourselves or attain some goal is counterproductive. It's basically you can't get there from here because you're starting off on the wrong foot with some kind of fixed concept of what we should be experiencing instead of being able to rest in what we actually are experiencing. So for that reason, I think what I'd like to do right now is have us all take, again, a good posture, straight back. Relaxed body and mind. Again, just take a moment to feel how we're feeling. And then perhaps work with the breath. Just feel the breath. We can allow ourselves to relax. Mind naturally settles. Slowly or eventually. So just feel the breathing. Just let thoughts come and go. Let them unwind. So when we meditate, sometimes we experience settled mind, resting mind. There may be few, no thoughts. And sometimes we experience lots of thoughts. But what recognizes all of this is awareness itself. Awareness recognizes settled mind. Awareness recognizes moving mind, distracted mind. And so as we settle, thoughts arise, come and go. See if we can see where they disappear. Where did they go? So this awareness, which is just a word for an experience, but this awareness, when we recognize it, we realize it's here all the time. Beyond whether mind is settled or moving, distracted. And perhaps this is just a glimpse, just a sense of what this one mind is, regardless of whatever we experience. there is awareness. I think for most of us, it's definitely easier to recognize when mind is settled. But it's awareness that recognizes when mind is not. So this is the one mind. This is what we're being asked to recognize, to enter fully into, to begin to recognize in a non-dual manner. I think we left off with the verse at the bottom of page 207. When the powerful method of entering into this itself is pointed out, your own self-knowledge in the present moment is just this. Just this. As she says, we despair at getting nowhere when really there's nowhere to go, because we're already there. There's really nothing to do, nothing to change in this fundamental state, primordial ground. And this verse really highlights this paradox with a series of questions. So when the powerful method of entering into this itself is pointed out, your own self-knowledge is present in the present moment is just this. Your own uncontrived self-illumination is just this. So why say you can't realize the nature of mind? There's nothing at all to meditate on within it. So why say nothing happens when you meditate? Your own direct experience of awareness is just this. So why say you can't find your own mind? Uninterrupted awareness and clarity are just this. So why say you can't recognize your mind? The one who thinks about the mind is the mind itself. So why say you can't find it even if you look? There's nothing at all to be done to it. So why say nothing happens whatever you do? It only needs to be left naturally in its own place. So why say it will not stay still? It only needs to be left at ease, doing nothing. So why say you cannot do that? Clarity, awareness, and emptiness inseparable are spontaneously present. So why say your practice is not successful? Spontaneously self-arisen without cause or condition. So why say you cannot, even if you try? Thoughts are fixed instantaneously as soon as they arise. So why say antidotes have no power? Knowing in the present moment is just this. So why say you do not know it? So again, it comes down to simply allowing ourselves to experience in nowness just this. Just simple present awareness. In the Mahamudra tradition, it said that we don't recognize this because it's too easy and it's so close. I think Dzogchen says much the same thing. It's just the fundamental awake quality of mind. So in her commentary on the verse that we just read, there's quite a bit to say about the Dzogchen terms: self-knowledge, self-awareness, self-illumination. And she says in Tibetan, the word wrong, which is what's being translated as self, really means one's own. And this actually, I've listened to other teachers who are translators talk about this specific term. And sometimes it's tricky because in saying self, they in no way are talking about an ego or any kind of solid identity of any kind. And for that reason, some translators have actually translated this term as reflexive, self-knowing. That it's non-ego self. It's a direct, non-dual experience of awareness. So another term in the Mahamudra tradition is Rangpa, settled in itself. which we can experience in meditation when we're able to relax completely, just settle into ourselves just as we are. The point is that in using these terms, self-illumination, self-awareness, self-knowledge, that the experience is not created by anyone. It's our own mind. It's the fundamental nature of our mind. It's clarity. Nothing's added, nothing's removed from mind. It's a complete experience of nowness. And she says this is why we often find translations such as natural, inherent, intrinsic, that this is the true nature of mind. Bare awareness, non-dual awareness. Sometimes it's said to be unborn, that it doesn't come from anything else. It just is. As she says, in ordinary usage, self-knowledge implies knowledge of one's inner condition as distinct from knowledge of the external world. But here, whatever one knows, perceives, or experiences is recognized as being within the mind and is therefore self-knowledge. Whatever the mind experiences is experiencing itself. So this in essence means that whatever we see, hear, feel, smell, taste, think, is our mind, is experienced through our mind. It's our mind's experiences. It's our mind experiencing itself. So what some teachers will say, for instance, if you think you're looking at me, but what you're really seeing is your mind. So this seems pretty outrageous because we define mind in very limited ways. We tend to think of mind in terms of what we think we can control, or what we think we can manage or influence. But really, if we really look at our experience, if we're able to really slow down and just look at our in-the-moment experience, we realize that whatever we see, hear, feel, or smell is a reflected appearance of mind itself, or it is mind. It's mind's experience of this world. The phenomena that arise are the mind itself, although they seem to be external. And for this reason, it's called self-appearance or self-display. And she says, in particular, self-awareness or wrong rig. Rig is the shortened form of rigpa. Self-awareness, wrong rig, in particular refers to the fundamental innate knowing of reality. It is awareness of the inseparability of emptiness and appearances, the mind being aware of its own creations, of the play between perceiver and perceived, and at the same time being aware of that awareness. And this is where we get lost, because we are not aware of that awareness. And we take things to be real in a way that they're not. We take ourselves to be a self or an ego that, when we really look carefully, we realize is in constant change. That if our feelings, our perceptions, our ideas are constantly changing, and that who we are from moment to moment is constantly in flux, is constantly undergoing change because of changing causes of conditions, and that there really isn't anything we can grasp to say this is a permanent, unchanging self. And so with the world around us. And so it's recognizing this and understanding this nature of reality that can bring about self-liberation, that mind creates its own prison. Mind creates its world, you could say. So as soon as the true nature of mind is realized, we can actually realize that it's always been essentially free. That our perception of a fixed reality of self, a fixed reality of other, and there being a separation between the two instead of one experience of mind. But again, mind in a way that we don't usually think of mind. So saying we usually think of mind in terms of what we control, what we think, what we think we can influence. This is talking about mind as the complete display of awareness. And that when we realize that that's what's happening, we realize the illusion, then we're free. So, I don't know, maybe John wants to say something at this point. before we go on to the next verse?
I'm not sure which verse we're on, but I love the part. Are you on the one, it is certain that the nature of mind is empty without foundation?
I'm coming to that, but we could go there now if you want.
No, it's just that he describes it as arising of itself as an appearance, like an image in a mirror. That all of this is like images in a mirror, not unreal, not changeable, not temporary, not vivid. So anyhow, go ahead, Michael.
Okay, well, anyway, I think it's all of these terms: self-awareness, self-knowledge, self-illumination, self-display, are all different ways of talking about the true nature of mind. In the Zen tradition, sometimes they'll talk about little mind, which is conceptual mind, the mind that gets caught on reference points, and big mind. And this is really a big mind. If we really were to sit and think, what is the limit of our mind? How far does our mind go? If we are going to say that there's some kind of duality, where does mind stop and the world begin? And if we actually stop and think about it, it becomes very unclear. In a relative sense, yeah, in terms of relative truth, yeah, but when we actually look at our experience in the moment, where does mind stop and the world begin? And we realize there's no limit to mind. Does it stop within the four walls of this room? No, we're aware of greater space than that. We might not see more things than that, but we make a mistake if we think the limit of mind is just what we can perceive with the eyes. We could hear sounds from outside, for instance. We might feel temperature affected by outside. And the more that we really look at what our experience in the moment is and don't get bound up in concept, the more we realize that that mind is boundless. So again, I think that one of the things that can make this difficult to understand is because we approach it with a limited understanding of what mind is. And we get caught up in duality that's actually conceptually created. And when we actually look at our in-the-moment experience, we can let go of that. We can relax that and just allow ourselves to experience without filters of I and other, without concepts of I and other. And that's it. That's what this next verse, which is on page 209, says. It is certain that the nature of mind is empty, without foundation. Your mind is non-existent like empty space. Look at your own mind. Is it like that or not? It is certain that whatever appears is all self-display. Arising of itself is an appearance like an image in a mirror. Look at your own mind. Is it like that or not? It is certain that all qualities are spontaneously liberated, self-produced and self-liberated like clouds in the sky. Look at your own mind. Is it like that or not? So again, I think to look at our mind, again, means to look at our experience in the moment. So not our ideas about who we are, not our ideas about what things are, but to look at what we're actually experiencing now, right in the moment. And because we're so habituated to being distracted and caught up in concept, this is why shamatha meditation, just basic mindfulness meditation, is so helpful in the beginning, because it allows us to settle down and just look and see, which is vipassana, superior insight, superior seeing. And that's what we're being asked to do. Just let mind look at itself and ask, what is the essence of mind? What is the essence of mind? And then from there, as we were talking about before, the idea that whatever we experience is mind, that whatever we see is mind. But again, not mind as we usually think of it, because our usual ideas of mind are bound up in ego and some solidification of self. So it's definitely a sense of mind that's different from how we habitually think of mind. It is certain that whatever appears is all self-display. As she says, to understand this whole concept, it's not enough just to think or feel that nothing is real or it's all in the mind. It takes a deep and genuine insight into the essence of what mind really is. This is why the teachings on emptiness and non-self are emphasized so strongly before anything else. Because we have to let go of our habitual way of thinking of ourselves, our habitual way of experiencing the world in terms of I and other duality. We have to let go in order to see what's being presented here. But when we do, we realize it's shockingly true. It's fundamentally true. That our ordinary, habitual, conventional experience of things is really illusory. And most of the time, we're not really aware of that. We live in a dream. But every now and then something comes through. We may ignore the fact that it is illusory. For instance, we might think, well, I remember even when I was a child, I would always feel that Sunday night was terrible because I was going to have to go to school on Monday. And yet Monday was never as bad as, same thing with going to work too. It was never as bad as it seemed in my mind before. That's the illusory nature of experience. We take things to be real in a way that it's not. Sometimes it's easier to see in other people than in ourselves, how they make up a whole drama about themselves in the world that we realize has an illusory quality. It's not true. So it's letting go, and looking at our actual experience in the moment, where we begin to see what we're being asked to see here. Look at our mind. Look at our own mind. Is it like that or not? Anyway, this is why the teachings on emptiness and non-self are emphasized so strongly before anything else. As she says, the fundamental mind itself, the source of all this display, this entire display of awareness, this vast, boundless display of awareness, is not my mind or your mind in the limited egocentric sense. That's what we're being asked to let go of or see through. The entire illusion of self and other takes place within the mind, which encompasses them both. But as long as we still believe in a separate self and a world outside, the illusion is certainly real on its own terms. So to say that everything is mine from that standpoint would be madness. And she quotes Dzogchen, Longchenpa, the Dzogchen master Longchenpa, who's asked if the external world is real, and says, of course it's real. But then he says, but what he really means is it's real in a way that we don't usually experience it. With the realization, as she says, with the realization of self-awareness, everything is seen to be real in an entirely different way as the expression of the enlightened nature. So, again, we might experience illusory appearances, but we understand that they lack any kind of permanence, that the world around us and we ourselves, everything is in a constant change of flux, that there is nothing that's actually permanent, unchanging, and independent that in ourselves or in the world around us. So, real but illusory, real but constantly changing, real but impermanent, real but only in terms of the causes and conditions that create appearances that come and go. And this is why when we rest in meditation, if we're able to just let thoughts come and go as they will, feelings come and go as they will, sense perceptions come and go as they will, that we begin to have some experience of this because we begin to settle into our true nature, this fundamental awake quality of mind. She talks about Trungpa Rinpoche. He used to say that the practice of Vajrayana is based on abandoning the hope of attaining nirvana and the fear of remaining in samsara. He called this attitude hopelessness. Of course, in the Shambhala teachings, he also talked about fearlessness, but we'll stick with hopelessness for now. Because they're twins. Hope. In any case, the point is that we have to abandon any kind of goal-oriented notion in our practice which is why the instructions on meditation involve so much emphasis on relaxation. Not relaxation in the sense of falling asleep or watching television and falling into a state of dullness, but relaxation in terms of letting go of fixed mind and just allowing open mind, settled mind to experience itself and to open to our experience fully. So again, hope and fear are both concept-based, and they're twin concepts. For every hope, there is a fear. For every fear, there's a hope. As she says, if what we're seeking is already within us, if our own nature is already awakened, then searching anywhere else can only take us farther away from it, because we get caught up in struggle. We get caught up in looking for something external, looking for something that's a construct of our mind, rather than allowing ourselves to rest in what's already there. So, as she says, this hopelessness, as Trungpa Rinpoche talked about, it leads to immediate and direct recognition of mind. Another way it's sometimes talked about is surrender, which is another way of talking about just letting go, surrender. And she talks about creation stage practice. Again, visualization practice is one way to perhaps to work with this. But with creation stage practice, although there is something that we're trying to do in terms of creating the visualization, she says one practices with the attitude that the result is already accomplished, so that hope of success and fear of failure wear themselves out, and that this overcomes spiritual materialism, the grasping attitude that sees enlightenment as a prize to be won. And with this, when this happens, we come to understand path in a different way. We understand path as a continuous process of rediscovery. Rediscovery meaning what we already are, an unveiling of what's already fully present, which is this fundamental true nature of mind that exists within us. And we develop trust and confidence in the ever-present reality of Buddha nature. And then the verse, how strange that it is unknown, although it is present everywhere. How strange to hope for a different fruit other than this. How strange to seek it elsewhere, although it is oneself. Wonderful. This aware in the present moment, clear yet unsubstantial, just this is the summit of all views. This, without object of thought, all-encompassing yet free from all. Just this is the summit of all meditations. This, that is called natural, worldly, and relaxed. Just this is the summit of all conduct. This, unsought, spontaneously existent from the very beginning. Just this is the summit of all fruitions. And then her comment on this verse is that the Dzogchen practitioner's ideal state of being is totally natural. It combines focused awareness with effortless relaxation. From this point of view, all meditation is contrived and all practices are artificial. Because again, trying to attain liberation by means of them is like a snake winding itself tighter and tighter. So really, the point of this is that if we approach the practice with any kind of goal orientation, if we approach the practice with any sense of what Suzuki called a gaining idea, then our practice will be contrived and our practice will be artificial. We will be like a snake tying itself tighter and tighter when it could just naturally relax and unwind. So really what we're talking about here is not in the practice itself, it's in our attitude or our approach to practice. That if we approach the practice, again, with the gaining idea, with a goal orientation, then we get lost in effort and we get lost in our own concepts of what we think we should be experiencing, instead of being able to relax and just simply be with what we are experiencing. And with this, she quotes a story about a lama called Zerchungpa, that illustrates the continuous state of one-pointed awareness that this requires. He was being questioned by a student of a different tradition who asked, in Dzogchen, isn't meditation considered the most important thing? And he answered, what is there to meditate upon? So the questioner inquired, well then, don't you ever meditate? To which he replied, what is there that ever distracts me? So if we're able to rest in this state of one mind, then there is no differentiation, no separation between perceiver and perceived, meditator and meditation practice. There's no experience that isn't an experience of awareness. So therefore, there is nothing to meditate on, because it's really experience beyond any idea of meditating at all. And there's nothing to distract, because there isn't anything that isn't in itself the display of awareness. So then the verse goes on, since there is nothing to meditate upon, not meditating on anything at all, since there is nothing to be distracted by, stable and undistracted mindfulness, nakedly look into the state of non-meditation and non-distraction. Self-awareness, self-knowing, self-illuminating clearly shines. That very dawn is called the awakened mind. So this is a complete experience, the complete experience of non-dual present awareness. That any notion of meditator, meditation, perceiver and perceived is seen through as just an illusory concept, an overlay on the fundamental experience of basic bare awareness. And she says, if one has really seen deeply enough into the nature of mind and is able to rest in that state, then it becomes possible to use all sense perceptions and every experience in life to increase one's realization. Because anything that we experience could wake us up. And in this state of mind, in this experience, this peak of Dzogchen experience, there is no separation. Without losing sight of the basic emptiness of mind, whatever occurs is recognized as a display of mind's luminous aspect. If we have become accustomed to recognizing whatever arises as an expression of the empty nature of mind, then we won't be taken in by the Bardo experiences, which no matter how terrifying or overwhelming they are, because we'll realize that these too are the reflected appearances of mind itself. And that's really what we're asked to do in this life, and it's what we're urged to do in Liberation Through Hearing, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and the Bardo. So I'm going to stop for a moment and give John a chance if something. Nope, go on. All right. In that case, since this is this awakened state of mind, what we experience in all the Bardos, dreams, waking state, deep sleep, this is the fundamental nature of mind. Then the verse on page 212, awareness of all appearances as mind without grasping is awakened. Even though seeing and seen arise, appearances are not mistaken. Error comes through grasping. Knowing the grasping thought as mind, it's self-liberated. So again, whatever we see, we're seeing our mind itself. Whatever we hear, we're hearing our mind itself. Whatever we feel, we're feeling mind itself. And when it says that appearances are not mistaken, error comes through grasping, this is quite similar. It's essentially the same point that when Tilopa was instructing Naropa, that it's not appearances that bind us, it's our attachment to appearances that bind us. That appearances in themselves are liberated, and any sense perception can wake us up. It's our attachment to seeing things in a fixed conceptual way that's what causes the error. That's the error. And when we see that, if we know that even this grasping thought, this conceptualizing thought, this labeling, fixating thought is mind itself, then we're free of that. The analogy that's sometimes given for this kind of self-liberation is like seeing a rope as a snake, misperceiving a rope as a snake. When we see that it's not, when we see what it actually is, when we see its true nature, when we see the rope as a rope, the snake is gone because it was never really there to begin with. It was illusory. And in this way, similarly, the illusion of ego, the illusion of a fixed world around us, all of that dissolves when we're able to just wake up and see thought as thought, rather than fall into some kind of self-hypnosis where we, again, create a prison out of our world through our concepts and ideas. The text continues, there is no appearance that is not known to originate from mind. Whatever appearance arises is mind itself, unobstructed. Although it arises like water and waves of the ocean, since they are not two, it is freed in the nature of mind. The analogy of water and waves is often given in Mahamudra as well as the Dzogchen tradition, that yes, conceptually we could label a wave as being different from water, but really it's just a different form that water takes. In its fundamental nature, it is water. They're both water. And to carry the analogy a little further, when we're able to relax the mind, the waves of thought go back into the ocean of awareness itself. And we're never really separate from it, except that the grasping thought, as she said in the verse before, the grasping thought tends to take itself that way. So again, we're able to settle the mind, relax the mind, and simply see in nowness. This is what can become clear to us. She says our intrinsic essence is a state of greatest simplicity, yet during the process of unveiling it, we have to work with the complexity and confusion of our minds as they are at present. So the point here the point that she's making here is, although any kind of goal-oriented approach to meditation can be an obstacle to us, it doesn't mean that therefore we should not meditate, that we're not at this place. We have to work with ourselves, cultivate our awareness, become familiar with the nature of our minds so that we are able to have some conviction and certainty about what it actually is. And that, as she says, the great Dzogchen masters, they did meditation practice, intensive meditation practices. She says the lives of the great Dzogchen teachers show that they generally spent many years in retreat and made tremendous efforts before they attained the spontaneous state of natural awareness, a complete identification, a complete conviction, a complete, I think sometimes we've talked about it as a shift of allegiance, but a fundamental shift in what we believe ourselves to be, or how we experience the world. To rest in the state of non-meditation and non-distraction, we have to practice conventional meditation first. Otherwise, we just remain under the influence of distraction, whether we're aware of it or not. And then, closing verses, all beings are in reality the awakened essence, but without practicing, they will not awaken. So even if we can't, she says that even if we can't realize the essence at present, or even if we only have fleeting glimpses of this, simply knowing about it and having faith in it make an enormous difference. These wonderful teachings, she says, are like the sun on a cloudy day. We can have complete confidence that the sun is always there behind the clouds, even if we can't see this. Very traditional Mahayana analogy as well for the nature for the all-pervading nature of Buddha nature, that it's always there, whether we're aware of it or not, and that it's like the sun hidden by clouds. The Dzogchen view can subtly permeate the entire path, whatever practice we're engaged in and whatever stage we've reached. And as she says, the text concludes with this parting advice, which is what I'll part with you as well. To see your own awareness nakedly and directly, this self-liberation through naked sight is most profound. So get to know this itself, your own self-awareness. So I guess with that, we have some time for any discussion, questions? Or if John, has anything else, John, you want to say?
So keep practicing.
Yes.
I think what we're doing is we're shifting our allegiance, our loyalty from self-improvement, which is our original motivation for coming to this path, to seeing things as they truly are, stripped of that motivation. And that by practicing every day, as we do, we approach that more and more, that fundamental relaxation, acknowledgement of what is real, or at least a dissociation from what is unreal, the idea of self-improvement, improving a self that doesn't really even exist except in one's imagination.
Mark?
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I just want to be like one scooch below, everything just disappears, including myself. So I'll take just slightly under the full enlightenment package deal. The, I want to stay. I'm whether I'm deluded or not. I love, you know what I love: the forest, nature, chasing dogs to keep them out of the park. And anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you. Wonderful. Thanks. Both of you.
We'll be discussing this again tomorrow night at the discussion group after evening meditation. It's presented as being inevitable if you keep practicing. We're going to let go of personal ambition, which is a symptom of the error, and instead see the world as it truly is, which is the easiest thing to do, and to see one's mind as it truly is. And giving up any imaginary project of self-improvement. Rinpoche once said, please give up trying to improve yourself. Please give up trying to improve yourself. It's the worst vice people have. I really think that he just was resting in this state that's being described here all the time. Giggling about it, giggling about us, laughing at us, and just enjoying us and his own mind. So in that sense, constant demonstration. I'm sorry, Michael.
I'm just going to say this one line again in the verse on page 212. Awareness of all appearances is mind.
What does that mean for you?
Awareness of all appearances is mind. As I say, I think for me to try to get at that, I realized that how I think of mind is, I had to let go of a very limited definition of what mind is. Yes, what I think is a part of mind, but in fact, mind is vast, boundless. Mark?
Well, no, I just from a physical perspective. I mean, our skull has our brain in it, and our we have these holes that turn visual signals into electrical signals, auditory signals into electrical signals. I mean, in so many ways, just even just in the physical sense, we don't perceive things, and we're tricked all the time. I mean, there are all these, you see them on the internet, that these things that look a certain way to you actually aren't. So that's the root. That's the superficial world we live in. But in addition to that, I think Buddhism's got it right. It's much more profound than that. There's it's a very magical. That's where the magic is, and for what reason? I don't know.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. I just realized it's 9 o'clock, so it's actually we've come to an end. But do come to discussion group tomorrow night if you're interested and you're able to. And we'll close with the dedication of merit. Dedicate the merit generated through our practice and study for the benefit of all sentient beings. By this merit, may all obtain omniscience. May it defeat the enemy, wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. By the confidence of the golden sun of the great east, may the lotus garden of the Rigdon's wisdom bloom. May the dark ignorance of sentient beings be dispelled. May all beings enjoy profound, brilliant glory. Thank you, everyone.
Michael, thanks, everybody.
We're
Thank
done.
you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, John.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Michael.
Michael. Thank you, John. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you, Michael and John.
Good night.
Okay, see you tomorrow.
Great. See you tomorrow.